YouTube, and welcome back to the Fan Pub. We are live. It's Sean Connors here, and it's this week's takes on the games that are going live. Last week was a fantastic response from everybody that tuned in to the channel. We shot it for a full hour. That's what we'll do tonight. Obviously, we want your feedback. We want your input. We need your thumbs up. We want your comments and your likes. This is obviously the whole thing is going to be guided by your good selves. Approximate time, I believe, is coming up towards about 10 to, so I'm probably about 2 minutes early, I suspect. And I've just been joined by one person. So as I say, thank you for tuning in. We are live, we are shooting, we are going for it. And it's the Fantasy Football Show for this week, pre-season. Thumbs up, like the comment, give me your thoughts and send in any question you have fantasy-wise. I'm just going to quick recap for last week very, very quickly and talk about the Thursday night game. But before I do, last week we highlighted several games. We highlighted the Chiefs over the Jags, the Vikings over the Falcons, the Browns over the Titans, the only one really we got wrong, Eagles over the Redskins, Chargers over the Colts, Seahawks over the Bengals, Cowboys over the Giants, and Saints over the Texans, and Patriots over the Steelers. So not a bad one. The other ones we actually said they were too close to call. The only really big one that we got wrong, of course, was the Browns over the Titans. So I really think that's not a bad week one start, to be perfectly honest with you. We will look at all the games. But before we start looking at the game matchups, let's talk about Thursday night football. Quite a lot actually in Thursday night's football. Thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning in. The Cam Newton game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this is a very interesting game because it's shown us clearly that Cam Newton is injured still. He's not fully healthy. I'd say 70%. There are clearly mechanical issues here, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and remembering that this is a league of copycat, have highlighted something very important here through the defensive coordinator, and that is that if they rush 7, Cam does not have the arm to hit wide open receivers. This affected Christian McCaffrey's fantasy value hugely on the night. I'm not sure if that will continue as a trend, but it's certainly something to be a little bit concerned about. Depending on format, he got between 5.5 points and 8 points, depending on formats. That's a huge letdown for most teams going into this week. But clearly, the big problem was Cam Newton. I'm almost at the point where I would say to anybody right now, if they ask the question, what should I do with Cam Newton? I'd look for alternatives right now. And if I'm honest, if you've got him in a dynasty league, if you've got better options, obviously roll with those. But if you're concerned, now might be the time to cash in, because I think that they've woefully. I'd shut him down if I was them. If I was Panthers right now, I'd actually shut down Cam Newton and get him fully healthy, because they're getting him murdered out there. And the only thing that's now going to happen is more pressure. And I worry for the guy, I really do. So it's very, very serious ramifications, this, and has big fantasy impacts for Carolina players moving forward. I think we saw DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel do very well in this situation, purely because obviously short range passes and a few of them got through. Could have been a lot bigger a night actually for Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore, really, if Cam had any kind of accuracy. Seriously worried about him now. Don't know what your thoughts are and what your feelings are, but do shoot your questions over. That's the whole point of the show. Please send them over as you can. I'll just quickly take a look, because I was paying so much attention to myself. I don't know if anybody. Oh, that was a bit of a mistake. Hang on. I've got a question through already from Dan. Hi, Dan. 0.5 PPR start Todd Gurley or Derrick Henry. Let me just double check that. Hang on, because the question disappeared far too quickly for me to catch all the words. Henry, Carson, and Cook are my other RB starters. Obviously Carson and Cook, you obviously not going to touch. I think I'd personally roll with Henry, if I'm honest. I don't trust Gurley. I think we saw last week, to be perfectly honest with you, he looked very tentative. Yes, he did get 100 yards, and I'm not denying that's great, but we did always say that the early days for him, he would look okay as the season started. But I think you saw, if you watched the game carefully, he was very quick to go out of bounds. He didn't get the goal line work. There are some serious ramifications here. Question I got asked during the week, which is a good one, is what do we do with Darrell Henderson? You just hold and you wait and see how this plays out, because there's still a long fantasy season ahead of us. But one thing we know, one thing we are sure of, is the breakdown for Gurley is there to be seen. And if you look at it logically, it looks very worrying actually for him. I have got great concerns. Thank you for those that are watching. Let's hope we get a few more questions that do come in. Let me give you some other updates for this week anyway. Let's look at some of the thoughts I had, in case you haven't called it. Here's a couple of highlights for this week ahead. What I'm hearing tonight is Joe Mixon is going to test out his ankle during warm-ups. Now, There's been back and forth conversation over the last 6 hours, really, about whether he's actually out, whether he's in. I suspect he's going to test his ankle during warm-ups, then they'll make a final decision. So bear that in mind with your starting lineups, remembering that the key here is try to have flexibility. Yeah, I'm just taking that question now, Drew. Thank you very much for it. Can I trust him this week? I don't think you can. I think this is the problem, to be honest with you, Drew. If we look at the matchup, we should always start with the matchups. Let's find the matchup for him this week. Let me see if I can quickly highlight it. Now, let me see. Right. Do apologise. Where are we? Falcon, Jets, Browns. I was looking at this earlier, and for some reason it's gone out of my mind now. Who's playing who? Yeah, Bengals 49ers. It's a wide open game. But the problem is, I think the 49ers actually have a decentish defence. I mean, that did shine out in week 1 quite well. I think he is clearly banged up. I mean, Dalton did well, so you'd expect him to come out slinging. It could be a game where the Bengals fall behind a bit. It might be a game they lead from, and they may need more of him. But I've got concerns. If you've got a better options, personally, Drew, I would probably actually sit him, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm really worried about this player. And remember, always, the best thing to do here is put your starters in starting positions, and if in doubt, put Mixon in the flex. And if you have to change him out, then it's easier to change him out. But it is going to be a game time call, and that's hugely worrying. Let's have a little look at the question, and then we'll look at some of the matchups this week before we go over some of the other player news. Oh, I do apologise. The camera flicked there for a moment. Sorry about that. Let's have a little look. Got some more questions. Thanks, John. Is he active? Well, as far as we know, Drew, Mixon is active, but the problem is it's a game time decision, so please bear that in mind. Which is the Patriots receiver to be on this week? Well, personally speaking, I think it's probably Julian Edelman. He knows the playbook better than everybody else. Brown's elite, of course, and he's going to come in, and Josh Gordon's going to come in. But let's be perfectly honest with you. I think Edelman benefits underneath massively, and they are going to dink and dunk and just cut their way to victory here. So Edelman's the guy initially. Brown will get his opportunities. So will Josh Gordon. It's a wide open offense. Every single one of those receivers could see 7 to 10 opportunities during the game, and depending on how many they take, that's very possible because he can dink and dunk his way up the field. Their running game will be a mixture of different players, and we'll see how that actually plays out. I thought Sony Michel week 1 was a little bit disappointing, but again, we'll see how that actually plays out. If you're new to the channel, thank you for those tuning in. We've got 9 now tuning in. Thank you for that. Please please send your comments in. This is your show. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the let's have a look at a couple of matchups, and I'll go to another thing that I noticed for this week. The Ravens are playing the Cardinals now, week 2. I do fancy the Ravens heavily from week 1. The Ravens formula looks quite exciting. There's some interesting news on the Ravens, which we can give you here at the same time, which is about Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, and Mark Ingram all playing as of effective of 10 minutes ago. All of them are down to start tonight and play. I suspect we get a heavy dose of Ingram early doors. I do expect them to do particularly well, the Ravens, and the formula will be to run quite hard. I know that week 1 they had a passing attack to die for, but let's be honest, this is against Miami. Miami are seriously in tank mode and are in real trouble week 2, because we're going to go on to that in a little while. They're playing New England. I mean, it's about as easy as it gets if you're into your betting and you like formulas. Having New England, probably even if they're 21 points favourites, they'll cover that spread, no problem at all. So fairly easy. Another one this week, we've got Lions versus Chargers. I fancy the Chargers a great deal. Keenan Allen should have an absolute field day. Mike Evans, sorry, I do apologise. Mike Williams is going to have, he is going to play, but all accounts seem to be he's going to be restricted to red zone kind of areas, probably 30, 40 yards and in to the goal line sort of work, probably. So it's going to be a Keenan Allen kind of day, and Eckler will have another increased workload, so it could be quite massive. I will come and have a look at your questions in a minute. Please keep shooting them in. So that's going to be quite interesting. We've got the Titans versus the Colts. I actually think that's quite an interesting game. It's too close to call for me. It's not one that I'm going to put one way or the other. I'm a bit concerned to see which way that's going to go. It's the same with the Bengals and the 49ers. The Texans and Jags, I feel a bit more confident calling. I feel like the Texans can roll the Jags this week. They were a bit unlucky week 1. It was an interesting game then against the Saints. So anyway, let's see your questions. I'm not quite sure why I am struggling to find them, but here we are. Let's see what we've got. We've got Gordon or Diggs in standard from CJ. Thank you for tuning in, CJ. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. That is absolutely critical. We are growing this channel at an exponential rate from when it started. and there are many people working tirelessly behind us. I would probably this week. I would probably go with Gordon this week. I just think it's too tasty a matchup in New England, if I'm honest. I need to see a little bit more. I need to see a little bit more about Diggs. There was some talk of him being slightly banged up during the week as well. So let's, if you've got that beautiful option, roll with Josh Gordon this week and see how that plays out for you. So I think it'll be pretty good, to be perfectly honest with you. Another game we've got the Packers versus the Vikings. This should be a classic game. Again, that should be wide open. I can't really predict that week one. I thought both teams were interesting. Vikings formula seems fairly straightforward. They're going to run the ball as hard as they can down the Packers' throat and not give Kirk Cousins too many throws, but enough to keep them in the game. The Packers will be looking to establish the ground game this week, I hope. It should be a bruising contest. There'll be many people who won't play Aaron Jones, but I think this is actually a week where you probably can trust him and roll him into your lineups. Let's have a little look at any other questions that have come through while I've been chatting to you. Please coming in. Need to choose two. This is from David. Thank you, David. Need to choose two between Diggs, AB, A-Rob, Ridley, half-point PPR. Okay, well, he did have a tremendous game week one, A-Rob, and it's very difficult when you get a player doing that to not go with him. So I'd stick with him, and I'd stick with Ridley in half-point PPR. I still believe, watching Ridley's tape, although he didn't get many chances, he capitalises on the opportunities, and I think this week he's going to get a few more touches. So that's the route that I would actually go down personally, and that's how I'm doing it. And to be honest with you, absolutely honest, I'm lining him up in a lot of my leagues. Calvin Ridley, I'm starting him over a number of players similar to what you've just asked. So I'm not doing anything I would not recommend, I can tell you that. Anyway, we've got Steelers versus the Seahawks. This is an interesting game for a couple of reasons. I'm interested to see how the Steelers perform. Now, we warned you before the start of the season, those that have tuned into this channel. You're very welcome. Thank you, David. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. We do need people like your good self throwing those comments in. It is vital we have them, and we really appreciate them. If you've got anything else you want to ask, please do. We've got plenty of time on the program to go through it, and I'm looking forward to going through as many questions as I can. I've got quite a few questions that are lined up for this week, so I will go to them unless you guys give me some questions, but I hope you have some and keep sending them in. Yeah, I'm interested to see how the Steelers do. Now, we warned you before the start of the season, they're a team in transition. They lost Antonio Brown, they lost Le'Veon Bell, and although the focus will be on people like Juju Smith-Schuster and Connor, we're very concerned on this channel about James Conner. Now, I know it's only week one. We just have to remember that. He's a buy low kind of candidate now because he's one of those players where there's always a value, as Al will say. It's just getting the right value. Another bad performance, and people are going to get very edgy. I really believe that the real value still lies within Jalen Samuels and Benny Snell as the season progresses, because you paid a damn sight cheaper price for those guys, and we'll see how this plays out. But so far, interesting how it's stacking up after 1 week. Giants play the Bills. Very excited this week to see how this plays out. Now, if you're new to our channel, please take a look at our bowl predictions. Now, we predicted Devin Singletary will be a bit of a breakout candidate for this year. I think we saw week one what he's capable on limited touches. I believe this week we see the baton handed over and the guy gets his chances. Could be a huge day against the Giants. I really don't see much in that team. I'm very deeply concerned about the team and their opportunities on what they're going to do this year. Is it a race to the bottom? How badly do they want that first pick? I don't know. I mean, it's a real mess there at the moment, but we'll see. Let's see if they've got any more questions first before we move over to other information. Right, let's have a little look. We have, we have got a few bits. Amari Cooper or OBJ in standard. Well, don't give up on your studs week one. OBJ this week. I think the Browns, it's going to be a very interesting game against the Jets. You've got to remember that the Jets are without Sam Darnold. I've got some news on Sam Darnold in case you're not already aware of it. I did highlight this here. Sam Darnold is expected to miss 3 to 7 weeks as it stands now. Having done a bit of research on this illness that he actually has, it would be wise to say somewhere in the middle. So somewhere between 4 and 5 weeks seems to work for me. I reckon that's probably quite realistic. Now, because of that and other issues that they're likely to have, I think what we're looking at here is a great opportunity for the Browns to bounce back. OBJ should have a good week this week, I feel. You never give up on your studs. He's definitely a stud. Let's see how it plays out for the Browns. They certainly need to get back on track after week one. That was hugely disappointing. And I expect far better from them. But we'll see what happens. This week is a real tell for them. Can they put it all back together? Can we see the offense we know is there? And can their defense step up? I think they can. I think they've got every opportunity. They produced sacks last week. It was the turnovers that was seriously lacking for the Browns. So this week with the Jets on the back foot, Trevor Siemian, you'd expect a pretty good week for the Browns defense, wouldn't you? I mean, it'd be pretty unusual to think that Trevor Siemian's going to rip you apart. And if they did, the Jets, using Le'Veon Bell as the key weapon and cornerstone of this, then perhaps we're looking at a different scenario for the Browns this year than anticipated, and that would be hugely disappointing, but we'll see. It's only week 1, well, week 2 now. Let's see what happens. Let's get back to your questions. I make that sound as if I know what I'm doing here, but the tech is coming. I'm getting better, right? Would you risk waiting on Bell Monday night or play somebody else on Sunday start at the start of games? Could use Breeder, Gore, Chris Thompson or Burkhead? No, I would simply wait on Le'Veon Bell. The news for Le'Veon Bell tonight is a bit more uplifting. I think we've got every chance that he's actually going to play. I don't think there's any huge risks. I know it's difficult because it's a Monday night game and things can change rapidly and can, obviously kill off your fantasy hopes. But I think he's their key. I think he's the key to their entire chances, to be perfectly honest with you, Monday night. He's keen to go. His tweets seem to suggest he's okay. The Jets are obviously being mindful a little bit because of what's happened, but I don't think he won't start, and I wouldn't risk putting in those other players, Mark. I'd go for Le'Veon Bell, and you need a player like this to keep doing what he's doing. He started week 1 very well, given his hiatus. He's going to maybe buck the trend of players that have taken a year out of the game. Maybe he's one of those rare commodities that can put it all together for a season ahead. We'll see how it plays out for him. Let's come back to the games for a moment before I look at your questions. I think we're up to the Redskins Cowboys. Expect a big win for the Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott this week is looking to take more of the rock. He did a great job actually on limited action. I mean, I saw some fantasy enthusiasts really upset that he'd only gained 11 fantasy points. I mean, what world are you living in? That's great. Wait till he actually starts playing properly, which will probably start this week. He should have a great day. Expect bigger things from him starting tonight. Had to be mindful of him. They had to reduce the rep count because he's coming back from a bit of a hiatus, no practice, no pads. He's had that game to get and find his feet. They played him for a long time in the game. He looked great on the pickup of blitzes. He looked good at running, looking good. They probably still have to limit them a little bit, but we're almost all the way back, and by next week I expect to be fully playing the load. We've got 19 people watching. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new to this channel, it is vitally important. Please subscribe. We need your subscriptions. You are the key people moving forward to the bigger things we've got planned for next season. We're going to see this all the way through. This is going to be a weekly show, and plus other things we'll be putting out every week before every game, giving you every bit of insight that we've got and answering your questions. And talking of questions, let's have a look at your questions and let's see what's come through. So we've got, thank you again, David. We've got from the money, David Montgomery or Devontae Freeman instead. That is a nightmare question right now for me. That's a great question. Thank you, money. Listen, I don't like either this week, actually. I think David needs a couple of weeks. We're going to wait. David's a hold, right? So somebody asked me what do you have to do with David? Well, you have to hold. I mean, I think that's the key here. David Montgomery will get opportunities. Clearly was the best back. Everybody recognised it. Everybody who's in fantasy understands that. The coaches will have seen that. His workload will go up. The snap count will increase. If I have to pick one, I'm taking him and I'll roll the dice on him. I'm not touching Devontae Freeman at all. I don't like it. This week, if we look at the matchups, right? So the Bears play the Broncos. Should be a good game for the running attack, to be perfectly honest with you. And the Falcons are playing the Eagles, and I don't like that at all. Expect the Falcons to get heavily blitzed, the run game to be heavily punished, and it all come down to the air attack, which is going to be Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and of course Calvin Ridley, in my view. There will be a sprinkling of Sanu, but we'll see how it actually really plays out. Let's take some other questions then that you've got before moving on. So well done. We are doing well. Keep your questions coming, please. They are very important. 2 from 3. We've got Jones, Keyshawn Johnson, and Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary, Adam, absolutely 100%. And I will take a real shot here. Let's look at the matchups for a minute. So we've got Detroit playing the Chargers. I'm going to go with Kerryon Johnson in this scenario. You've got 3 great running backs there to choose from. I'll leave Jones on the bench because you've got the perfect scenario, to be perfectly honest with you, in this case. If I didn't have a better option, I'd probably have to roll him in with Devin Singletary, but I love Devin Singletary's setup this week. This could be the week he breaks out. This could be the week he really breaks out. This could be the week he gets 150 yards. If you're a betting person, it wouldn't be a bad punt to think he can get 150 yards. Seriously, I know it sounds crazy now, but we'll look back and see what this guy can achieve, because it could be exciting for him tonight. I'm really excited to see what he does, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that match. So let's have a look at your other question before we move on with some of the other bits that we've found out tonight about the information in the league. A great question here from Michael. Thank you. First time. Anybody that's first time, please like and subscribe. Very important. Good to have you on board. Waller or Cook instead? I'm going Waller. I'm going to go all over Waller this week. I think it was a good shout from Al in our Deep Sleeper video, if you haven't seen that, before the season started. He looked okay to me. Week 1, quite interesting. Just lacking a few more chances, and I think they're there for him now. I mean, if you look at their team and who they've got to throw to, it's pretty limited. I think he's one of those. He's going to be certainly one of the options they're going to have to turn to. It's amazing, frankly, to have 23 people in the room with me. Very appreciated. Please use this opportunity. Thank you, Adam. Please use this opportunity, get your questions in. If you've got anything at all fantasy related, even if you want to vent about something, you're welcome. And I'll talk about it with you, I promise you. So don't worry. Being a Rams fan, we've had a lot to vent about over the years, except last year, except the final. We'll leave that there. Let's talk about some of the other games anyway. We've talked about the Giants versus the Bills. Very excited to see the Bills tonight. I think you already know why. Dolphins versus the Patriots. Well, I think, quite frankly, the Dolphins are in tank mode. The Patriots, what kind of scoreline can they light this up with? God knows. I mean, I dread to think what they're capable of tonight, but I wouldn't surprise me if they won by 30 points, frankly. It should be a cakewalk for them. Lucky them in their division, eh? We've got the Raiders versus the Chiefs. I fancy the Chiefs strongly in that one. I really don't think the Raiders are going to be able to go toe-to-toe with them. We've got the Rams versus the Saints. It's too close to call. We've got the Broncos versus the Bears. I do fancy the Bears, and I do fancy Montgomery to get a few more touches tonight. I'll finish these off, and I'll look at your question, and we'll come back to some of the other stuff that we found out this week. The Falcons versus the Eagles. I think I've already given you the hint that the Eagles are the nod from me. And this week, the Jets versus the Browns. I'm going to roll with the Browns. They've got too many things at their advantage, and hopefully they can take advantage of it tonight. So let's see your questions, and let's have a look at what you've got that's coming. Let's have a little look. So keep them rolling in, people. Thank you very much for that. Don't recognise which NFL team shirt you have on. Is it college? No, this is a little England top. It's a little bit of a. We're here in the UK. We're giving a little shout out to the UK badge as well as the NFL. So you can forgive us if you're an American fan, because we are with you 100%. As you know, John, we're drafting all over the country. We're hardcore drafters here. We've got loads of leagues. If you're new and you're part of the UK, even if you're in Europe and you fancy taking part in something special, the live leagues are out there. Here in certainly in the UK, we have 3 live leagues you can enter. We have multiple leagues on a Discord site. Al will always leave links to various sites within these videos. Take a look at them. Please come and join us. We've had quite a few people recently who've come and joined and come over to Discord and have found it very, very useful. They can get their questions answered by the whole community there, not just my good self. And a lot of those guys and girls have fantastic input. And, collectively as a group, I'd argue that it's second to none. So well worth joining that group for sure. Anyway, let's have a little look at your questions. Thank you, though, John. Really good to have you on board, a fellow commissioner. You're welcome, Adam. John Ross, the third, or McLaurin? Now, it's interesting. He did have an interesting week, this wide receiver from the wide receiver from the Washington Redskins. I think John Ross, the third, maybe this is the moment. Maybe this is his time. Maybe that was a coming out party for him. Maybe last week wasn't just a blip. We'll see this week. Is this going to be the John Ross we've seen before? A game here and there, then drops off the radar for weeks. Is that the kind of performance we're going to see? He has got the NFL experience over McLaurin. I do feel, and I'll probably pronounce his name wrong, so I do apologise. It's another English four-ball. We're not very good at pronouncing your names. Well, I'm not anyway. Al's much better at it than me. But forgive me. So I'm going John Ross III. Experience over the sort of newer rookie for me. Wins through. They need him more on the team. It's going to be a night where they throw a lot more. I just feel that it should lend itself well to. We'll find out how well John Ross III is. I've got in one league, I'm rolling with him this week to see what happens. I'm going with John Ross. I picked him up. I thought I'll go with it and see what happens. It could be a disaster, but, it's a small price to pay in one league. We'll give it a go and see what happens. We've got quite a few people watching, and that's fantastic. So don't be afraid. Please do like the videos. Do join in and do throw your questions in. And we've got another question coming in again from Anthony here. Hello again. I need you to pick two for me. That's Damian Williams, Josh Jacobs, Brandon Cooks in half-point PPR. Well, if it's half-point PPR, I'm going with the running backs all the time. I'm going to go with Damian Williams, and I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. That Rams wide receiver group is too tricky to call any given week. Any one of them can get 5 to 8 catches. Sometimes all three can get it. But I much prefer the situation with Josh Jacobs and Damian Williams, to be honest with you. I know Damian Williams' work is being undercut a little bit, but I still believe he's the better passing back. But we'll see how it plays out this week. So I'd go with those two, if I'm perfectly honest with you. That's what I would do. Now, I'm going to come back to some information first, but we'll look at more questions. Now, a question mark on Antonio Brown. Now, this has come out tonight that actually on Monday, so next week on Monday, there's going to be his accuser, because he's been accused of something. We won't mention it on air here. He's been accused of something quite serious. His accuser meets with the NFL. So they'll be bringing their evidence. That's something you need to be all very mindful of. Now, this could be nothing more than hot air. It may not have any credence. It may not have any credibility. But let's just go back a step and look at the circus that AB has become. Let's just think about this. If you've got Antonio Brown in any league right now, I'd be looking to sell high, right? Particularly if he has a good week here, sell high, get in there quick. Maybe make that deal tonight. Get it in, get off him in Dynasty as quickly as possible. I've been telling you about this a couple of weeks. As my good friend Al says, he has frostbite in the head now. You've got to be seriously worried. I am. Thank God I've got no shares of this guy, and I'm avoiding him literally like the plague. I don't want nothing to do with this circus. So let's see your questions, and I know a few have come through. What if we are from Spain? Hey, you are from Spain. I know you're from Spain, and you came over and live drafted with us. Thank you, David, for tuning in. It's very good to have you here, sir. Hey, we are 1/20th of the audience. Hey, I like that, Spain. Hey, Viva Spain. Is that right? Viva? That doesn't sound right. I'll go with it. España. There you go. Thumbs up for Spain. Can't be any fairer than that. Welcome aboard, Dave. He's a great drafter. Again, a brilliant drafter. Actually, he has been a fantastic contributor throughout all the live leagues, and a lot of the time he hates his teams. That's an interesting thing about him. He hates his teams, but his teams always seem to do quite well. So there's something to be said by being a difficult owner or a coach owner. He does seem to do quite well. Good to have you here, David. Any questions you got, please send them over. Mark Lewis has sent one about Antonio Brown for this week only. Where do you rank him? Will he pick up the offense, or is it a risk to start? I think it's a massive risk. The New England offense is hugely complex. You don't pick it up in 2 weeks. I don't care what professional you are. It takes a few weeks to do that. You know, he can run certain packages and basically run for daylight. That's the ultimate aim, really, with Antonio Brown. You can give him a route to run, maybe over the middle, a 10-yard slant. Those kind of things you can give, and he can run them, and you don't need to know the playbook to do that. He only needs to know his part of a play. But it limits the kind of packages he can take part in to a degree. I'm not saying they won't massively utilise him, because that would be ridiculous to say that. But I just think there's got to be situations where the offense's complexity means he can't be involved in it. Or if he is, it's a decoy only. So certainly something to be aware of. We all know Antonio Brown. He's a great player when he plays. But really, is his head in it? That's a great question in itself, isn't it, really? Let's see. Let's take some more questions, and there's a few more coming in, so thank you for those. Please, if you are new to the channel, do not be afraid to subscribe. It's very important you subscribe. Please keep thumbs up. Brilliant you're here with us. We've got about another 30 minutes to go, and then we will wrap up with about 10 to 12 minutes to go before the game starts. You'll have time to get yourself set up, ready for your games ahead. So this is your opportunity. Any last-minute questions, let's have them. Right, let's see what we've got. Right, let's see. I took, this is from Adam, so it's a good question. I took Singletary to get over 100 yards on a TD. It's 11-1 on Sky Bet. That's a fantastic bet, Adam. Massive bet. I love that. Love to get on there with you, actually. And I think I probably got him, actually. So I'm going to have to use those 10 minutes, 12 minutes after this to get on that, because that looks too tasty for me. I'd go with that. He's certainly capable, and that would be a brilliant bet. So well done to you. I think that's a super bet. We've got Al with us. He said, might be higher, David, if Javier is watching. It might be higher, David, if Javier is watching. Well done, Javier, for watching us. Joe Mixon or Adrian Peterson from Owen. Hello, Owen. Nice to meet you. Really appreciate you being on here. I'm going to take Adrian Peterson in the non-PPR this week over Mixon. That ankle issue worries me a lot. When it's ankles and running backs, you have to be very, very cautious. Adrian Peterson has a chip to prove because they didn't eat. They said he was a scratch week 1. By week 2, Geis was injured, and Adrian Peterson has had to be welcomed back with open arms, all but, shall we say, not in an ideal way. He has a big chip on his shoulder. I expect he's going to play quite well tonight, Adrian Peterson. He's going to give everything he's got and try to prove people wrong again. And that's all he ever does in his life, prove people wrong. Great question here from David Walker. Javier, well done. Miles Sanders versus Vernon Davis the second, PPR for tight end. Okay, Miles Davis or Vernon Davis, two PPR for tight end, one PPR for running back. Don't quite trust Sanders yet, and Davis usually does well when Reed is out. Okay, that's a fair shout. I actually prefer Miles Sanders this week. I think he was a little unlucky last week. I think he proved he was the better back of all of them there, and I think the opportunity's there, and I don't think that's gone unnoticed actually by the Eagles. So expect to see his workload start to climb up as well. He was unlucky not to get a touchdown last week. He looked very, very sharp indeed, actually. They just need to give him a few more opportunities. I appreciate if you are less risk averse, you may want to roll with Vernon Davis, but God, is he often injured, isn't he? It's your choice, 2 points per reception, but how many is he going to get? He could get 4. That might be worth its while. And maybe we think, wow, that's a really good shout to put Vernon Davis in. But I just feel more comfortable with Miles Sanders. I think he's going to get better for him. Maybe he booms for you this week with a touchdown and a bit more to come than that. So I kind of feel the running back is the way to go forward. I think the premium for tight ends is woefully overvalued. I mean, how many weeks have we seen things where it doesn't work out? We saw this week alone, AJ Howard, no points. That can happen with tight ends. It's so regular that you see him have a good week, then a bad week. We'll get to some truth this week, because one of the questions I was given this week about tight ends was very interesting, was about Hockenson. Is he the real deal? I think after week 1, it would be too easy to say yes. I take on board that he looked great, and he could be another Kittle coming into this season. That's quite possible. Let's see how he does week 2. If we're looking at a player who's getting you 8 to 10 fantasy points, I think we have to start saying yes, that is a player that could be very good, very, very good. I'll have to give a shout out to one in our community, Kieran, my son. Fantastic pick that. Hockenson, he said before the start of the season. We didn't get on board. He's only told us late. And as always, he's spotted a really, really good player if it pans out that way. Otherwise, it's just another pack tight. And week 1 can be an outlier sometimes, but we'll see. It does look, I've got to be honest, he did look good. So got to give him his credit there. Let's have a look. We've got more questions rolling in here. Try and capture them all if I can. I've got another question from here. Vikings age 4 is watching, wants to know what the show is called. Oh, right. Okay, so hello to the young Vikings fan, Shani's son. Hello there. How are you doing? Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Yes, it's called The Fan Pub. We are an NFL show before the football starts, and I know you've been watching the football with your dad. Fantastic. Well done. Yeah. I'll make sure that you get a special prize, actually, for watching football, which we will get to your dad before the end of this season. So we'll get you a little something because you're a Vikings fan. So just for you, because you're special to the show, we will get you something just for you. So welcome and well done for joining in, and well done for watching the football, because you're in good company. It's the best game in the world. So welcome aboard. And I'll let Shani tell me what his son would like, and I'll get that for him, because unless it's something ridiculous like tickets to a game, we can't do that here. But we can do something nice for you. So don't worry about that. But welcome aboard. So we've got some more questions. Adam, I have DJ Moore as my wide receiver 2. After the car crash of Thursday night, would you be trying to work a trade? I would, actually. Yeah, I would. The problem is, although he did quite well, actually, you've got to be seriously concerned. At the beginning of the show, I talked about Cam Newton. I'm going to say it again now because we've got new people in the room. Cam Newton is really has a problem. He's rehabbing from a serious injury, I think. I think it's much more serious than people have given it credit for. He clearly hasn't got any kind of velocity in the throws. There are real issues with the mechanics, and Tampa Bay exposed the biggest flaw of all. Rush 7, take risk, leave receivers uncovered, and he's got to beat you with his arm, and he wasn't able to hit accurate throws, and he was put on his back a number of times, and his health, you've got to worry about what's coming next, to be honest with you. So it could be a massive car crash. Now, it may not be a panic mode if it's Dynasty, of course, that's different, but redraft leagues, you could start to feel a bit concerned. I might have some serious reservations over that entire offense in another week or two. Maybe that game's an outlier. It's not a problem. Just one of those things. They can correct things, but maybe not. We'll see. I'm really worried about them, to be honest. I'm quite good at judging quarterbacks, and I really do think there's something seriously wrong. Lockett, this is from Mark. Thanks, Mark. Welcome back. And you've been a really good subscriber to the show. We gave you a shout out last week, so it's great that you've tuned in. Thanks very much for tuning in. Lockett, John Brown, Jeffrey, or Kirk in the flex. You got to go Lockett there. I mean, I think week one, you've got to play your studs. He played well last year. Stick with Lockett. See it through this week and see how it plays out. I know Jeffrey had a good game too, but I much prefer Lockett. I think it's a good matchup, actually. I mean, if we look at the matchups, we should always revert back to matchups if in doubt. Seattle's one looks quite tasty to me. I quite like the situation they're playing the Steelers. The Steelers looked all over the place. I think it's a wide open game. Should suit Lockett well, and there should be plenty of opportunities down the field to hit it. We've got 22 people still in the room, and that is absolutely unbelievable. We still have plenty of time. So thank you for tuning in. Don't be afraid to get your questions in, and we really do welcome those questions. We will answer all of them before we finish, I promise you that. Right, let's get back to your questions. Let's have a look what we've got here. Anthony has asked this question. Another question in my chat league, on my other league I have, is decide between Kerryon Johnson and Matt Breida in the flex. Well, I was a bit disappointed with Matt Breida week one, to be honest with you. I was expecting bigger things. He's a big... Matt Breida is a big player for Al, who spotted him a couple of years in one of our videos, which we did about deep shots. Rookies you might want to target late and pick up, and he proved to be a really good pickup for Al. A bit disappointed week one, but some of the competition has fallen away with injury. Breida's got a great chance this week to bounce back, so I think we can take the shot on Breida, showing his class. He's clearly a good pass-catching back. So let's fingers crossed that week one was just a blip and we get to see the best of Breida this week. And if not, then we'll have to reevaluate that next week and really start asking some questions around him as we move forward. And you can blame Al if it goes wrong as well. So just so you know, and Al's watching, that's good. We've got, let's see, we've got quite a few things. Okay, we've got this one. This is from Al. Great to see, and this is for Al's comment to all of you. It's great to see so many different people in from all over the world. We've got people in this room from China, Austria, Australia, Germany, Canada, Spain, and all over the UK, and that is absolutely fabulous. And we're really grateful to have you with us through this show. We've got huge things planned for next season, as you're going to see, but we're going to see this season all the way through with you, right the way through to the end of the fantasy season. And then we'll take a short break and be back early next year with lots of things that we are planning to do on this channel. So keep remembering that. Please keep an eye on your YouTube videos, click the bell, and be ready, because there's a lot that's going to happen here. So let's get back to your questions, and I'm going to pick up on a couple that I've been sent through this week as well. And obviously all the people in the US, yes, absolutely. Dak or Baker for this week? Well, it's a much better... It wasn't looking so pleasant for Baker until the news of Sam Darnold's injury. Dak played really great week one. He's got a great chance to repeat week two. I think both are great options, and I think it's a paper thin guess, really, who's going to do the best. I've got to believe that Baker Mayfield is going to come out, and the Cleveland Browns are going to want to show that the first week was just that, a first week, get it all out of the way, and let's move forward. I hope that they can turn it around against the Jets. So I'm going to give him the slight edge, but it's ever so close. And that may seem counterintuitive, because Dak Prescott has been great. It's just I feel there's a lot more points to be had with Baker Mayfield this week. And I think the Jets are going to be on the back foot all night, and the Cleveland defense is really going to keep them pounding. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I really don't like Trevor Siemian. It's not a good situation, to be honest with you. That's what you're welcome, Mark. Thank you, Shani. Good to have you and your son here. Some people are saying Newton changed in mechanics to shorten it, maybe protect the shoulder. May need a little time until he gets comfortable. Yeah, let me tell you something, David. That does not help you as a quarterback, right? I totally understand what people are saying. That has not been shortened to protect the shoulder. He's had to do it because he can't throw it deep. He can't. The full mechanic of it, but depends on your throwing motion. Okay, so very, very quickly, there are really 3 types of throwing motion. My preferred method is to pull the hand backwards with the ball point and then bring the hand through. Now, I prefer that personally because I'm I would say a smaller QB, not in height, but in power. So that turn of the ball through allowed me more velocity. It allowed that ball more power, and gave me every ounce of momentum that I could put into it with the correct motion to get the ball to go further. Now, if you don't use that method, some quarterbacks just prefer to straight throw back and throw, and that's perfectly fine with the right mechanics. But I do feel what Cam's doing is kind of that version, but about halfway. He's still not opening up the full body. He's about halfway. That's worrying. It's very telling about the injury. It's very telling that he's had to shorten the mechanics. I don't disagree with it. But it's not in his nature to shorten those mechanics. So the problem is occasionally when he forgets himself and tries to do it, you're seeing balls that are really not very accurate at all. And that's the worry and the concern. So it's a road back, and I don't think it's just rust. I seriously, after Thursday night, Copycat League, you're going to see a lot of blitzes on him, health-wise. Wow, I'm worried about him. He'd be one I'd be trading in Dynasty really quick. I don't like the future here. That worries me. Remember Andrew Luck. If you haven't seen our video on paradigm shifts, that illustrates it. That Thursday night game shows it fully well. If you can't protect the quarterback, get ready for the future because it isn't pleasant with your trigger man. That's for sure. Let's look at your questions. We've got some more. Where are we? Terrell Williams or Damian Williams, PPR in a flex? Well, I much prefer Terrell Williams this week. That's a great question there. Thank you. I'm trying to get your name. I don't think I'm going to be able to. It's too titchy on there, but I can see your question, Terrell Williams. But thank you for what. Really appreciate your comment. Really appreciate the question. Do keep the comments and questions coming in and the thumbs up. Very, very important. This is your show. We've got 19 minutes left until we kick it off air. And we really appreciate all the feedback and everything you are doing for us. So thank you very much for that. And don't be afraid to not just watch the video. Please share it with your friends. We're all here for each other. I'm going Terrell Williams this week over Damian Williams. I just think the situation is much, much better. He just said, call me LF. I like that. Yeah, we'll call you LF. That's fine with me. Thank you, LF. Really appreciate that. And thank you very much for the question. Right, I've got some other questions that I've been asked this week. One of them is in regards to Mike Williams. Now, I think I mentioned it early on the show about the fact that he's going to be limited this week to probably red zone work. And that is a big problem. So he's going to be limited to only probably a few snaps. So be prepared for that. If you've got better options, then roll with the better option this week. It is a bit worrying that that's what they've said. Now, that could change by game time. But a lot of these players that have got issues over them this week are unfortunately at 6 o'clock. So it really doesn't give you a lot of time to get it right. And I'm massively worried about that. I've already spoke about Sam Darnold, so I've covered off a couple of those questions. One question that came out was about Tom Brady. Could this be a year where he gets close to 5,000 yards? It's possible. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the league he's in is falling apart. You now don't have Sam Darnold for 3 to 7 weeks. Miami are in tank mode. I don't really have to go on. I mean, we all know the situation that he's faced. They manage the game so well. They're managing his age exceptionally well. So the truth of the matter is he's got every chance to literally pick teams apart tonight. What could he achieve against Miami if he's allowed to? I mean, the sky's the limit, frankly, and they could roll up a big score tonight. So, yeah, it's possible. And we saw some amazing games week one. I mean, you know, Sammy the Boot Watkins in standard scoring got close to 50 fantasy points. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Those are the kind of scores. We talked about this on this channel in the off-season about some of the great scores in fantasy football over the years. I mean, that's going to rank right up there as a week one performance for sure. So, you know, can he repeat is what I've been asked a few questions on. Sammy the Boot, you know, he's their best option. Hill is out. Sammy's still healthy. What's not to like? He's got every opportunity to do well again this week. One would have to think that Mecole Hardman has a chance this week to get some decent reps, and we'll find out whether that equates into fantasy numbers. So some people will want to roll the dice because they're up against good opponents. That's one of the best ways to do it. If you've got an opportunity to put someone like a Mecole Hardman into the flex because you're 20 or 30 point underdogs and you know your team is a bit struggling, it's worth a risk sometimes in these games where some of these teams can rip apart other teams. And Mecole Hardman might get some deep bombs, a bit like big bombs like we saw with Hollywood Brown on the first week of the NFL season. So yes, certainly worth it. I saw some questions popping up. Thanks for those. Let's get back and find them. Here we go. Right on point. Also, Newton isn't turning at all, so a big minus. Yeah, that's yes, that's a very good point, and that's the other issue. You see, when you're throwing the ball, your lead leg, the leg that you stamp down, depending on where that is pointing, determines the direction of the ball. And if you watch the tape back, and look at Cam Newton when he was throwing. He was often off balance as he was throwing, and that happens with quarterbacks, of course. But his leg was kind of turned inwards a little. The accuracy was already gone, and that's because he's trying to protect his hip and he's trying to protect his back. So all the signs are there for a problem, and that's what I was noticing when I was watching the game tape, to be perfectly honest with you. Right, let's get back. Is DeAnthony Thomas worth a bet for the Chiefs to get a TD? Yeah, it's possible, Adam. I mean, this is a week where they could score quite well, and there's going to be some deep shots in that game for sure. They can't all go to Sammy the Boot because he'll draw some good coverage this week. So there's a really, really reasonable chance that somebody like him might get one. So certainly don't put too much on it, but a few quid, maybe 3 or 4 quid. And if the odds are good, maybe a fiver. Worth a shot, I'd say. And if you fancy your odds and you want to double up on a couple of bets, it's probably worth a risk, isn't it? So that's a good question. We've got quite a few people still watching. Thanks very much for that. Please keep sending your questions in. We will do everything we can to answer those. We have 15 minutes left within the show, 14 minutes to go. We'll answer every question before we finish. We will finish bang on 60 minutes, leaving you enough time to get to the football, the same as I will be very soon. So let me just have a little look through. And also, please do not be afraid to like and subscribe. They're very important to us. Yeah, well, thanks very much about that as well, Adam. Adam recently joined the Discord site, and he's finding it very, very useful. There's a lot of good people on there commenting all the time. There's a lot happening on those Discord sites. There's a lot of leagues, and there's a lot of fun to be had and a lot of information that you can't find elsewhere. And I really mean that because, this is why we're able to do the things we do on this channel. And if you are new to the channel and you haven't had time to go back and look at some of our previous videos, to give you some highlights of the kind of things that we've done on the channel over the last couple of years, we predicted Philip Lindsay 2 years last year. We predicted Le'Veon Bell a bust last year, long before the news. Fournette was a bust last year. You got to remember that we predicted those things way before it happened. And we were also able to accurately predict many other things. Now, the year before that, we hit so many home runs. It's been a fantastic year for the show. And we've made some other bold predictions this year. Some of them are already starting to look pretty good. And some of them, well, we'll see how it plays out. That's life. But the one thing we'll always be with you is honest. And that's the key here, is that we share and learn from each other. We've learned some great things through some of the audience members here over the last few months. People who recommended Terrell Williams, Sammy the Boot. These are the things that I will not forget, because those are the kind of things that can help people win leagues. How do you think Sonny Michel does today? I'm worried the Pats might get really ahead a long way and hand the ball off to Burkhead. I would agree exactly with that, Anthony. That's exactly how I see it playing out. They get ahead early and they'll hand the ball off to Burkhead and not risk Sonny Michel's knee. That's as simple as it is. I don't think it will go any other way. Al's chipped in here. Demarcus Robin is 30 to 1 with Paddy Power and Betfair. He is second on the depth chart. I mean, 30 to 1. I mean, that's certainly worth a punt, isn't it? I mean, a small bet, very nice reward for a tiny bet that. Thanks, Al. Great information. We've also got this. We've got Mixon or Latavius Murray. Well, that is a tricky one, Alex, but really appreciate the question. I mean, I think in that situation, if I've got to pick one, I've probably got to take the main running back. You've got to go with Mixon over Latavius. But although Latavius will get maybe the odd plunge or a bit of work, Murray, Mixon potentially is a 3-down back. You just have to go with that. Yes, the ankle worries me, but in that situation, I probably have to roll with him. So that's sometimes the questions, isn't it? The differences, the minutiae, the difference between taking a player one way or not taking them another. Some more questions here. The Alex Smith. Well, yeah, John, that's a great point. Is Cam Newton the new Alex Smith? Well, on that form, quite possibly, yeah. I mean, worrying. He can come back. I mean, rotator cuff injuries are quite bad, and having had a couple of surgeries, you have to be concerned, and you've got to really start watching the tape now, and you have to elevate. You have to factor in the risk, and if you see this again next week, and teams will copy that format of rushing more and taking risks, people coming off corners, it may be time to start considering things. Because you imagine if you saw another week where Christian McCaffrey scores under 8 fantasy points, even in PPR. Imagine another week because of what's happening. You'd have to be seriously concerned the direction this is going. I'm not saying that's going to happen because he's been brilliant and he's done nothing wrong. But sometimes situations and circumstance can massively go against you. And this is a situation. This is big now. And what can they do to counter it? That's what we're going to find out really quite soon. We've got just over 10 minutes to go. Please keep your questions coming in. We are closing in on the end of the show this week. My week 2 lineup from Raymond. Hi, welcome Raymond. I've got quarterback Deshaun Watson. I've got wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Sound like a dream team. Devontae Adams. This is good. Zach Ertz. Austin Eckler, like that. Sonny Michel. I've got a wide receiver. It's a flex spot. I think Cooper Cup versus New Orleans or Goodwin versus Arizona. I go Cooper Cup this week. He didn't get many yards last year, but he got enough targets, so I roll with him. I definitely roll with him over Goodwin. I'm not as big a fan of Goodwin as I am Cooper Cup, and I think the rest of your team looks pretty epic. I'll tell you what, that's a damn good team. Thumbs up from us over here. That's a great team. You will have a great year, I think. Yeah, that's a good double. I like your stack. I think that's a really nice stack to have. There are a few that are worth it. In week 1, that must have been brilliant for you with 2 touchdowns from DeAndre Hopkins. I had him in one league, and he was fantastic. When we bailed me out of trouble, actually beat Al. It's a great result. Thanks, DeAndre. Always nice to beat Al, but then he did beat me in another league, so that's life. Al's put the Discord link on for those that are watching. Thanks, Al. That's really appreciated. There's your link. Great opportunity to come and join us. And I'll tell you what, you won't regret it because there's a great little community over there. And it's a big secret around the NFL. You know, many people don't realise we're here. We're UK based. They don't understand that we're passionate around the sport. We live draft. We've got lots of leagues. And not only that, we've got a deep knowledge of this game because we've been watching it for years. Myself, I actually go back to the era of emailing and postal fantasy football. So I'm no stranger to the hobby. Constantly adapting, constantly changing. We all bring different things to it. Al's got a great betting edge to his mind and a great way of getting value out of picks. And I bring a unique perspective of finding the nuggets, the unusual players, the Devon Singletaries, whoever people didn't see, and then telling you all about them long before it happens. And then when they happen, people go, well, that was obvious. It's always obvious after the event. So that's what we bring to you. Hopefully you're enjoying it. And as I say, please come and subscribe. Please come and see us on Discord. And please keep watching. We'll be back next week. We will be back next Sunday as well. Got a couple of questions here. We've got Magic's asked. Thanks, Magic. Good to have you here. Lovely to see Magic. Been a long-time follower of the channel. Massively appreciate your thoughts, Magic. Big shout out to you because you've said things and it's affected the way me and Al have thought about players, and it's definitely helped us as drafters. So we can't thank you enough for that. Anybody that can influence the channel tells you how valuable they are as a subscriber. We really appreciate that and your input. It has not gone unnoticed. Let's see your question. So it was Waller or Andrews at tight. I'm going Waller all day, Magic. I'm not hesitating myself. I know that Raymond's saying Andrews, but I like Waller. I think the situation's good. If we look at the matchups this week, I know the Browns, the Baltimore Ravens have a great situation this week, but I think a lot of it's going to come through Ingram and a passing attack again, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm much more in favour of that. And I think what we're going to see with the Raiders, it's going to be a big matchup. And I think they're going to be throwing all day against the Chiefs. So I think there's a good opportunity for Waller to get involved in that work and do quite well for himself. So that is the reason why I'm all over him. We've still got 18 watching. It's fantastic to have you all in here. We still have 7 minutes left of the programme. Now, this is your opportunity. There's still time. Get your questions in. We are running out of time to answer them, but we will endeavour to answer every question sent through. I'm just going to pick up on a few questions that were given to me during the week, and hopefully they may help you with final lineup situations. One question I got asked about was this, about studs. Somebody said they were very disappointed that they have drafted players like OBJ and Rodgers week 1, and should they be concerned? The absolute answer is no. You don't panic week 1. The one thing you never do in fantasy, it happens every single year, is 2 things always happen. The first one is that there's always outliers every single first week of the season. Often defenses start hot, but occasionally, like we saw last week, some teams are already in tank mode, like sorry Miami, but you really are. And you got absolutely destroyed by long bombs. You look like you weren't even in the game. And that creates strange outliers, games which are really weird and that probably won't be replicated again. Will the Miami be as bad as that again? Who knows? Maybe this week they get destroyed even more. They're certainly not in it. We've heard about players requesting transfers. There's a complete mess going on. But week 1 always gives outliers. Defenses often start hotter than offenses, but there are always exceptions. So you hold on to your studs. You don't do anything silly. If you're happy with your team, you should be happy with your team. You don't panic until you're about 3/4 weeks in. Now, this is why, okay? So very simply, first couple of weeks, you can always find yourself in a hole, 0-2. That's not the end of the world. If you know your team is scoring well in the format that you're in, and you need to judge that yourself. We always say in standard, if you're scoring about 90 fantasy points a week without any unusual scoring systems, you're doing okay. If you can get high 90s, you've got about an 80% chance to win. So that means your team is generally, playing well. And it may just be bad schedules, bit of luck, rub of the green, as Al says, and various other things that can happen that can go against you. So don't panic. Alternatively, if your team is starting poorly and not putting up points, by week 3, it is time to start thinking about making some moves. You can't really afford to be staring at 0-4 in the barrel and hope to get out of trouble. We know the mathematical odds are very, very low. In the NFL, if you start 0-2, there's only an 11% chance of making the playoffs. I think that's probably reflective in fantasy a lot of the time, unless you're in shallow leagues. If you're in leagues that are 14 or 16-man size, I think the odds are pretty slim to get back from a 0-4 start. You're at panic stations at that point. You've got to do everything in your power to try and turn it around. You may even begin to be looking like playing spoiler because that's how bad it is. So that's the time to start thinking about it. It is not after 1 week. Let's see what week 2 brings. We could be looking at these players in a completely different light week 2. So let's see your questions. I think a few more have come through. We are coming into the final 4 minutes. Let me answer them for you. Chris Carson versus the Steelers or Sonny Michel. It's Chris Carson all day long. I'm not trusting Sonny Michel. Great question, Raymond. I love Chris Carson. He is elite. He is brilliant. Don't doubt him. He is fantastic. So I'm sticking with him. Let's get your next questions in. We've got a couple more here. Diggs or Singletary for a flex? I'm going Singletary all day long, Mark. I'm not doubting Singletary for this week. We've got some good odds that were suggested to us early on from getting 100 yards and a touchdown. That would be well worth taking. That's how confident I'm with him this week. I think he's going to do exceptionally well for us. For those that took the leap of faith, and have him in their teams, I'm rolling him into starting lineups this week fully. I'm believing that the talent will rise to the top. We've got a couple more questions. Let's have a little look at this. We've got Cup or Deshaun Jackson. That's a really tricky one because I'm really quite, Cup, I've had to give him a thumbs up earlier here in the video, but that's a tricky one because he got catches, but he didn't get a lot of yards. That tells you a lot about the rust of coming off that injury. I was great to see the catches. It's good to see the contact. I'm probably still going to Cup in this case. I think there's more in the player. I'm hoping that he can come back fully, but it is tricky. And there's one thing you have to be wary of Cup. Not now, because nothing's happened. But re-aggravation of an injury from what he suffered from that ACL tear. Massive chance of reoccurrence. There's a 30% chance, and that can come quite early. If he can get through the first 4 or 5 games unscathed, he's probably okay, and we'll be fingers crossed he's okay for the rest of the year, and hopefully that's that. And I'll be hoping he is, because he's a great player, and particularly for the Rams, we need him badly because he's one of our most important players in that team, and one of the reasons we didn't do so well in the final. Right, we've got a few minutes left here, guys. 2 minutes left. Love Chris Carson more than David Johnson. That's from Henry K. Now, welcome aboard, Henry. That's good to have you here, sir. Now, if you haven't subscribed, Henry, please subscribe to this channel. Please like the bell, and don't be afraid to come and look at us on Discord. We operate 24/7 all throughout the year. And that's unknown to a lot of people in America. We are hardcore maniacs. We've got a lot of leagues going on, Dynasty and all sorts, and we are not a soft touch. I just need to make that an emphasize too. You might think English people, they won't know much about the NFL. Come and try us out if you think you're hard enough, because some of these guys are exceptional drafters, and they are going to push you, and you're going to learn from it as much as we learn from you. So we would welcome you with open arms to come and join our leagues. Now, we've got a minute left. Okay, thanks for subscribing, Henry. That is very appreciated. Big things on this channel brewing for next year. I promise you, we're going to be here every single week throughout the season. Right the way to week 16 is when we're going to have a short break. We're going to regroup, and then we're going to come back early next year, ready for Dynasty, rookie drafts, and all sorts of stuff. We've got some exciting news to tell you all about. We're holding back on it, but we will be. I've got another question in. Do get those questions coming in. Let's have a little look. We've got about a minute to go. So here we are. Let's see the question. It says, good luck, everybody, except those playing my teams. Yeah, well, thanks for that, David. That's very kind. You're very welcome, Dan. Really good to have you on board, Henry. We've got a question here. Last one from me, Sean. Breeder or Singletary, non-PPR. I'm still sticking with Singletary all week long. He's capable of doing anything tonight. That guy, he could do anything, and in a positive way. I just think if they give him 20 touches, what's he going to do? He will break he will break a long ball. He is special. I said he was a mixture of many different players, Singletary, and he is. And more people will begin to realise this as the time goes along. And they will realise how special he is. They said he was too slow. He can't catch. You can start dispelling all those things. Obviously, if he lays a duck kick tonight, you can come and criticise me next week, but I don't think he will. So anyway, we are at the 60 minutes. It's been fantastic having you aboard. If you've got any last questions, this is your moment. I'm going to just quickly check them. Here we go. I've got one that's come through from Andy. Oh, the last second question, I like that. Hi, Sean. Would you risk playing Mixon today? Andy, it depends on your options. Thank you very much for the question. Please like and subscribe. If you haven't got a better option, it is worth the risk. But this ankle issue is a massive concern. Please go back and look at the video. You'll see a number of points where we brought up about Mixon throughout the video. And hopefully, depending on your situation, you've got options to roll or not. If you haven't, he's a 3-down back. I think you've got to go with it. Anyway, gentlemen and ladies, thank you for watching tonight. That's been show 2 in the books. We'll look forward to tonight's games, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Here, the show will start about 4:45, 10 to 5 next week again for 1 full hour. I look forward to seeing you there, and we'll mop up the week ahead, the results of the games, and everything that you've been interested in talking about. So till then, take care and see you next time.